Hey everyone, my name is Ridish and I am from the R Hub and AI Automation Agency. Today, we are going to look into what OpenAI has released called an agent builder. And this agent builder has very basic capabilities, I would say, and not something as compared to N8N or Make.com to really match to that level yet. I've used N8N for my business workflow, providing to customers and creating a bunch of tutorials on that too. However, N8N in general stays on top from what OpenAI has offered in comparison. However, OpenAI has a great potential in terms of building apps, no-code apps with speed of light. So watch out for that. With that said, let's dive right into what OpenAI has to offer in terms of agent builder. OpenAI, basically, we have been using APIs in N8N or Make.com to use their ChatGPT models and things as such. OpenAI has now leveraged that entire model and really killing the canvas of creating the workflows and moving into that field of really building an agentic AI. Where this comes into is more in terms of the security, in terms of enterprise solutions, because most of the companies nowadays are integrating OpenAI into the system. And OpenAI just had this one option that they have yet to release. And I think what they've started with this one is a beta version of Agent Builder. And from my perspective, I think it is a fantastic start from where they've begun. And they've already provided some template. I've already assessed some of the options, and I think it is powerful. And if OpenAI continues to build on this one, guys, watch out. It could replace many tools and many startups. So without further ado, let's dive right in to what is an agent builder. So in Agent Builder, it's basically a visual canvas. It's a canvas for creating and versioning multi-agent models. And then there's something called connector registry. So, in N8N or Make.com, you have this multiple options that you can connect to different systems. Make a request, for example, creating an appointment in Google Calendar or sending emails from Gmail or Slack or any of that such, or even inputting into CRM. In OpenAI Agent Builder, that's something called connector registry. So connector registry is basically, it's like a central hub to manage data and tool connections across all the OpenAI products. Now, if you remember in N8N, we have this AI agent and we have to provide the brain and we have to provide the tool to this AI agent, right? But it's the same way in OpenAI as well. You're using connector registry where you're connecting a particular AI agent. So, for example, it could be a Google Calendar. And that has Google Calendar is basically becoming a tool. So you're passing a prompt, and that tool is basically acting to make the correct decisions. Now, on top of that, where OpenAI really shines is in building multi-agents. And that is so quick to build. So that is exactly what we're going to take a look into today. But before I dive right in, there's another one, and that's called ChatKit. Now, it's basically a chat interface embedded in a product. So in many industries have been using ChatKit, and that's basically you embed that chat bot, which is like in the right corner. And that chatbot is basically you can ask anything about the product or even ask about, hey, where is how is my product selling, or can you give me some better ideas and can you help me schedule something? That chat kit is really, really impressive. So definitely go ahead and check out for the chat kit. But it's a toolkit for embedding customizable. So without further ado, let's dive right into our first agent called customer service. So the customer service that they have provided. Now, I could go ahead and create a workflow, but just for the demonstration purpose, I think using their templates is going to be very helpful. And I will be able to explain most of the options that are in this template to make sure I save time for you guys. So let's go into called Agent Builder. So in this Agent Builder, basically you have this multiple options. Simply, I'm going to customer service, and you can drag and drop from the left to right. There is an option here at the bottom as well to select individual components that are in this canvas. But the way this canvas works is the workflow is basically from the left to the right, okay? And if versus if you go to Zapier or any other ones, if they have from the top to bottom, even N8N is left to right. But the point I'm trying to make is if you drag it to the down, it's not like N8N to where you can do vertically as well. It flows more from the left to the right. So for any workflow to begin, the first option is basically the start. And in the start is basically when you run a chat or if you ask something, when you prompt something, that's where it begins. And before I dive into this workflow, let's look at the options we have on the left. The first one is the agent. So the agent is basically if I bring in an agent, I can give instruction to that agent. So for example, I can say, hey, you are an expert at providing research advice for food industry. So that becomes basically an instruction to that agent. Similarly, how we have instructions in N8N. And then you have the model. So you would always want to keep the chat history. The reason why is because with OpenAI Agent Builder, every time you type in, it starts the process from the start itself. So it starts the process from the start here. Okay, so it will start the process and then it will run the entire flow again. So that's why you always want to include the chat history because it's going to remember your past your responses. In general, for OpenAI Agent Builder, okay, every time you communicate to the Agent Builder, it basically starts from the left to the right. So in that case, there are certain rules that you pass along, okay, and I will get on that too, and it's something called guide rails. We'll get on that too, but you definitely want to keep the chat history on to remember what you have discussed throughout that session. Next thing is the models, and they have plenty of models: GPT-5, GPT-5 Nano, 4.0, 03, 02, and 3. Even up to 3.5. But just for demonstration purpose, let's skip it to GPT-5. Then there's a reasoning effort, right? So when an agent is providing a reasoning behind what the instructions are given to it, like for example, it's an expert at providing research, the reasoning effort is low. If I set it up too high, basically that is going to increase the power that the GPT that it takes in order to give us the best reasoning it can, and that could take potentially slow down the agent speed as well. But it's just something you want to be careful about. So if you're building something for customer agent, mostly you're doing it from your knowledge database or vector database or as such, and in that case, you don't really need to set up for a higher reasoning effort. But something if it is like a research agent or a newsletter agent or creating a custom article for you, then you may want to have it as a slightly higher reasoning. Now, same thing. We have our brain, which is our model, and now we need to decide a tool for this one. So for the tool, there are multiple options in here. So let's dive and go straight into this classification agent. So if you want to delete or learn more, you can always click here. I'm going to delete now. But we're starting here. And then the next is the jailbreak guide rail. Okay, so the jailbreak guide rail is basically saying, hey, based on the input, okay, and that is, you can run the test flow from here. Based on the input, what is the overall intent? So it basically So it basically detects prompt injection and jailbreak attempts to keep the model like a no task. So basically, if I say, let's say this is a customer support agent, and if I say, hey, I want to fly first class. Okay. Now, this customer agent has nothing to do with it because this customer agent is basically, hey, do you want to return a product, or can I offer you something, or do you need any information on the product as such, right? It has nothing to do with the flight. So you set up this jailbreaks instead of really consuming the tokens and training the model to say, hey, you are going to be uh, just this type of an agent or so. You set up a jailbreak to where it works in a specific context. Okay. And if you look at the input, that workflow as a text input is basically you're saying as a pass or a fail. Okay. So I've just set it up to continue. And if you want to do like continue on error as well, like if it's not able to understand what's the input from the user is and still want to continue, you can always turn that on. But when I turn that jailbreak, in that jailbreak, I have the confidence threshold. Okay. So basically it flags attempts to bypass AI safety rules and you know all of that. That is one of the beauties about the OpenAI. Like I said before, it thinks about the safety because OpenAI is much more integrated at the enterprise level. So if they're doing something at the beta level for now, they want to ensure that they introduce a safety factor, test it, and then finally release it at the enterprise level. Now, keep in mind at enterprise level, you will have more of an admin control on this one. Okay, so keep that in mind. But we're setting up a confidence threshold for the jailbreak guide rule to understand, well, what is my current confidence, and if it is if I'm not able to understand below this, then I'm going to basically just say it's a fail. Okay. So these pass and fail are basically by default. Same thing with hallucination. It detects potential hallucinations by validating the string inputs. And then you also have the moderation, which is classifies and blocks any harmful content, like if you were to say anything harassment or anything as such during a text, right? So this is helpful as well. For example, if somebody's typing in something that is harassing, then it technically blocks that text and saves you in terms of executing that workflow further. So you see ChatGPT is using its brain. Like we used to use APIs for ChatGPT in N8N and Make and all of that in Zapier. But we had to train in a way to kind of like how you need to behave versus what they provide is like a filter, and that filter could be like hallucination, could be a jailbreak, or it could be like a moderation, or even personally identifiable information. So that is something like if you're providing something that is like a passport number, this or that, like all of that is basically you're kind of turning that on and saying if that's anything of like that, we're not passing that forward. So any any key information you're passing over, it will block that too. So I think it's a great option in terms of putting that into your chat model. I think it should be in every chat model that you go into. So for now, we can even turn on, for example, the moderation. I would turn on the moderation as well. So now let's go into the next option, which is identify the user's intent. So classification agent, we were talking about the agent. What is agent, right? So the agent is basically where you classify what this agent is going to do. We just went over. So in the instructions, we're saying, hey, classify the user's intent into one of the following categories. So based on whatever I input, we're kind of classifying it in a three different categories. Like, do you want to return the item, cancel the subscription, or get the information? Now, the model is 4.1 mini because, again, this is a very basic instruction. You don't need to use the ChatGPT 5. And output format is key. So in output format, you have three different options. Okay, so this one is text, JSON, and widget. So remember I was talking about the widget like a chat kit. You can use a chat kit as a widget as well. But for now, we're going to do JSON. And in this one, when you do the JSON, you can define the schema. The schema is basically about, okay, we'll give it a name to the schema. It's pretty much to how we use the JSON response in N8N if you do the comparison. And in that one, you have, let's say, classification. So return item, cancel item, and get information are the classification, same as how we're doing for the instruction. So that's all the classifications we're going to have. So once that classification is completed, and we're just giving it a description, and once you give the name of the classification, you can decide what type of a classification that is as well. Okay, is it a boolean? Is it a num? Is it an object? Right? And based on that classification, that's how the next information flows through. So remember how you provide all the information on how the outputs would be. We said it's JSON, and we need these 3 types of outputs, and just tell us what that is coming out to be. Now we're going to route it to the correct agent, right? So basically, if it's a cancellation, it's a separate agent. If it's a return, it's a retention, is a separate agent, and information type is a separate agent. So what we need to do is we need to put a condition into this one. Now, if you remember in N8N, we had like an if and else condition. If you look at on the end, on the left side, on the logic also we have the if and else. So it's the same logic in here. And if I open that up, you can have multiple if, else if conditions. And I can give it this name as, for example, this is a return item as an if condition. And then else if is more of like a cancel subscription. And the last one is get information. Okay, so you see how that's typed in here. So if it's a return item, it will go to return agent, cancel to retention agent, because when someone cancels, we can say, hey, if we want to offer something as like, hey, we can give you 10% off, 20% off, and that basically goes to retention agent. And we'll dive more into how these agents are thinking and responding to these things. Okay, so the way you set it up is basically, let's say it's a return item, and you see there's like a little text in here, but this is like a common instruction. So for example, if I wanted to type in, it's basically input.output parse.classification equals return item, right? So this classification agent is what it's coming out to be. If I wanted to add more, I would click here, and you can see that this are automatically coming out. So basically an output parsed is from this agent, and we wanted to know the classification string. If you remember, that was our classification. So if I say classification, you see it automatically types in, and then we are going to say if that equals to, and I can say, something as in just cancel, or say not interested, right? And I'm going to say, right? Then what we could do is actually, they have this custom flow, but what we could do is in this not interested, I can have that driven down to another agent, okay? But before I do that, keep in mind, I would never get a condition of not interested, because in my classification agent, in response schema, I never had not interested as any of the items. So let me define that. And you can see that that's now added, and I've put in not interested as one of the items. And I have to make sure that that is the same code as a classifier. So not interested. Okay, so that basically becomes as my else if, another condition. Also, we have to define in here too. So if it is that, or not interested. There we go. So if you wanted to expand and just take a look at the whole information, that's how you could do it as well. But we've basically defined another condition, and this condition has, like a not interested. So what we can do now is we can have another agent, basically this one, and I can basically copy this agent, Control C and V, and I would connect this agent to this node. And what we want to do now is we say, hey, you are an agent, not the information base, but you can see there's like a ton of information, right? So there's much more into this. Like you can put in all your policy agreements and upgrade rules and everything that you want into. But what we would like to do is, if somebody's not interested, okay, you basically type in that if you're not interested, then you can basically cancel the whole plan and things like that. Okay, so more of like, think of it, if you wanted to eventually move it to an agent, or hand it over to, or bring or think it in a way like you wanted to bring human in the loop. So in that case, what you do is you get this information agent and expand it. And this is the basic context, but as a tool, you can have an MCP server. And that basically MCP server is here as well. Okay. So in the MCP server, you also have this option like Gmail and SharePoint, Outlook email, or anything as such. And then you also have a Zapier as a third-party server. So you can connect OpenAI to Zapier directly to perform the actions, or HubSpot if you have one. So what you can do is directly send it to HubSpot, your CRM. I'm pretty sure they'll release more CRM in the future, but you send it to the HubSpot CRM and say, hey, well, this customer just said he's not interested. He wants to cancel. Doesn't want to take even anything further, right? So it logs into the CRM to where a human can be connected and the chat can be taken over. So pretty much that will go further into, like if I click on it, I'll have to provide my token and things as such. But I'm currently not looking at it. So it becomes more of like a tool itself. What can we do inside of this tool is more yet to be released from OpenAI itself. So this is more of like more of like an MCP server. So when you think of an MCP server, you're just communicating to the system itself instead of saying, hey, create a ticket in HubSpot or this or that, right? So that's how it works. Or if you wanted to add any custom server, you can add that too. So that's how that works. And for now, I'm just going to take this one out. I don't need it, so I'm going to delete that. And even in this one, don't need it. So let's take a look into what is the return agent. So return agent is basically offers a replacement device with free shipping, right? So it's a very, very simple one. Hey, I would like to return, and then I can enhance this prompt. And if I want to enhance, right, I can click on this new prompt message, or I can say enhance. And in that one, what I can do is basically take this one and click update. And when I click update, basically ChatGPT will generate a prompt that sounds more like an instruction. So it says, offer a customer replacement device and inform that the shipping will be provided free of charge. Clearly communicate that there will be no shipping costs for the replacement. And if I just say that, and there will be no cost for the replacement, use clear, concise, and friendly message to reassure the customer. Okay, so output format, respond in short and professional written paragraphs. So that's like a much better than originally what ChatGPT has provided, of course. Same thing, including chat history. And that's basically a return agent. Same thing, retention agent. So retention agent has much more. You are a customer retention conversational agent whose goal is to prevent subscription cancellations and ask for their current plan and reason for dissatisfaction, and you use retention offers to identify the return options. For now, just say there is a 20% offer available for a year. Now, this becomes more dynamic. So this is like a straight 20% offer that we're by default putting it in, right? But sometimes, depending on what the product is and the custom percentage that we're allowing, would be different. So that basically comes from the tool. So if you take a look at here, there is a function defined, and that function get retention offers has the specific offers. So for example, it has a specific schema. So if you look at the description, retrieve possible retention offers for a customer, and basically depending on type of customer account, such as mobile, internet, or cable, a name and customer name, all of that information. We need customer ID, current plan, tenure months, and recent complaints, all of that too. Okay, so what we're doing here is you could define all of your retention, like offers into this format. Or what you can do is simply go to tools, and in the chat kit, you can go to client tool. Okay, so where this chat kit is helpful is basically you can connect any specific chat kit. And for chat kit, you can, if you go and say click learn more, you'll get functions about the chat kit and how that works. You'll get all that information too. Apparently they don't have it linked correctly, but I would include it somewhere down in the description, of course. But if you take a look in the retention, I can also go to tools. And now what I can do is I can have a file search. Okay, so if I go to file search, I can upload a specific file and say, like maybe I could export Excel sheet Like I can, export specific Excel sheet and add custom products and things like that into it, and basically upload it into this file folder. Or I can select a vector store. Now, if you've been, OpenAI has its own vector, pretty much still. I'm pretty sure in future they'll allow the Pinecone and all of that too. But if you have the vector store where all the information is stored, in that terms, then if you're using the RAG agent, pretty much you don't have to use a RAG agent. You can just connect the vector store and will automatically do that as well, pretty much in the future. But if I click on select vector store, it's going to ask me for a vector ID, and that vector stores are basically just the OpenAI vector stores. So you could definitely search that out, and it's very similar to how the Pinecone works. It's just slightly different, but the standard process of vector store and storing the data in crumbs is very similar. So with that said, like I said, there's multiple tools. What you can also do is like a web search. So in a web search, you can define a specific country, region, and things like that, and do the web search from there. But for our tool, it's not really relevant. Or if you, like I said, if you wanted to connect to any MCP server or have any ChatGPT client tool, you could do all of it in that format. Now, general output, we want it in text because that's what is going to be given to the user itself. Okay. Now, in this chat agent, these chat agents don't understand directly about certain information. So, for example, if there's a return or there's a retention or there's like an information agent is basically, like I said, the workflow works from left to the right. So once the agent is done with its work, like provided information, it's going to stop right there and wait for another input. So when the input starts, it starts from the left again, goes to the right. So with that, if you go to the return, return agent or retention agent, it's basically going to say, hey, let's take a user approval as well, right? So that becomes more of like a user approval logic. So there's a separate option for that here. Like we've checked the agent, file search, guide rails, MCP, if and else, and you can have a while loop as well. But there's a user approval as well. And user approval is more of like an approval reject. And if I just go to this user approval, you can have a message, does this work for you? Or so, basically, and then user will say approve yes or no. And then you basically approve then end, reject then end. But if you wanted to expand further, you could do that as well with adding more agent. If it approves, then update into the CRM with their new pricing or so. Let's say if you're doing a service-based pricing or anything as such, or if you need to initiate any type of return and so on, right? So that's how this basically works. Because it's an MCP server, if you guys know what the MCP servers are, they are basically, think of it this way. In N8N, you have this whole agent that does multiple tasks. An MCP server is basically designed to where you're talking to the system itself. So I'm telling to HubSpot, hey, create a return for this particular customer, this product, or this order ID, and basically the HubSpot MCP server knows how to integrate that and does all the automations in itself, right? So nowadays automation is really growing, and I think what ChatGPT is doing is not really going into like giving you a very detailed N8N level like execution task. It's connecting MCP servers directly. And that's why I said they are very focused on their security and compliance and all of that stuff. And that's why they're able to build this infrastructure, and companies love it because they don't want to spend so much time just creating a task, writing a ticket. Just talk to the system itself. And more systems will be adapting to the MCP server. So I think ChatGPT is really going to shine in that case because they have a good reputation and be able to connect with multiple MCP servers. So with that said, let's now take a look into the last option, which is our preview. So, this entire agent that we connected, right? Like for example, in condition, if it's else, you can end that too. But if we wanted to connect and say, hey, I want to do, I want to test this out and see how this whole thing works, where you start from is basically from the preview. Okay. So if I click on this preview here, now I can talk to this entire workflow basically and see the execution as it moves along. It basically highlights every option, every workflow object as we move along. And you will see that as highlighted as well. So let's go ahead and start chatting with this OpenAI agent builder. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm just going to say, hey, let's see what it responds. Okay, you see it's going through the jailbreak guide rail. Now it's going to the classification agent, and classification agent is saying, well, it's a safe text, it's passed, and now the output is coming out as, not interested. So I should have basically, I should actually take that out because that's not relevant to that one. So let's close and let me take out the not interested in classification agent. It may be confusing. Oops. And we're basically, and there's no need to save, basically you just leave it as is. So let's go ahead and do the preview. And I'm going to say now, hey, and it's going to the jailbreak guide rail, which is a safe text. So it will move along and then move to the next part, which is the classification agent. And classification agents say, hey, he's probably looking for information. So, hey, how can I assist you with your horizontal communications mobile service today? Basically from their company saying, so I'm going to say very dynamically. So I am not liking the product, and what are my options? I am not liking. So I just said I'm not liking. Let's see what it says. Jailbreak guide real good. You can see it's going classification agent, and now it's going to retention agent because it says that I'm not liking. So it's like, hey, I'm sorry to hear that you're not satisfied with your service. Could you please tell me what your current plan on and what specifically you don't like about it? And this will help me see how I can assist you better. So I don't know the plans. So I'm just gonna say I don't know my plan. And in this one, you can connect the HubSpot as well as a tool for the MCP server. Just knowing what the customer name and their ID and things are, you can pull all the information, and the agent won't be responding like this. But you can say, I don't know my plan, and I would like to cancel. Service is not good. Okay, so let's move that. So again, jailbreak. So it's constantly checking if it's a jailbreak. And like I said, it starts from the left and right, and that's why the chat history saving is very important. So now you can see, I understand that you are experiencing issues with the service and considering cancellation before proceeding. May I try to offer you a 20% discount for 1 year to improve your experience? If you could provide me with your customer ID or account details, I can check for the best retention offer for you. Would you like to proceed? You can say yes. My ID is 12345, and I have, and I am from Chicago. So I don't know what the what the account details are, but that's all I'm providing to them. So because this is a demo, it's most likely like moving along, and it will say, okay, I'm going to approve and all of that stuff. So as you can see, moving more forward. So retention agent is calling the function, and this response is basically that's the current plan, the retention offers. So I need to submit my response, press tab to generate a response, or enter one manually. So I'm hitting tab, and it's not really doing that. So that's a new thing. So I can say success as a true. Oh, I have to press tab in that one. Okay. So in response, I have to press tab, and once I press tab, it generated, and that's my basically that's my offer, 20% off, upgrade to premium for 1 month trial or next bill, and offer 1, 2, 3, submit. Usually you don't do this. You have a specific like a $10 credit or 1 month free or so, going straight towards it, and say, I see that there are several offers available for you. Which one you would like to go to? And I would say it's number 1, and then the agent is going to do its work, start again, do the jailbreak, and they say, great, I will apply the 20% discount on your next 6 month subscription right away. And to help you improve your experiences, you should see the updated pricing reflection. If you have any further questions, please let us know. And, another thing you can add is please don't forget to raise this conversation or give us a 5-star or whatever that is. Right. So, because you make the customer happy first and then you ask for the review. So that's how it works. And basically, you're done with the chat. So pretty much you can see how it follows, right? It does the start and start and start and. So in the middle of the process, it doesn't it doesn't go to the middle and then more of like a linear flow. You start it from the left and right, or like an N8N to where you're communicating to that chat widget itself and then it's moving along, right? So it's a slightly different. Once you get used to it, you will understand it. But this is how basically their agent works, takes the approvals and things like that. There's also an option to kind of do the data transfer or like transformation or set state. But basically, from the view itself, from what I could tell, I think it's a great foundation. Once they start building, and from my understanding, I think they are going to build at a very high level to not provide like every nitty gritty detail and just go straight to the systems, because that's what OpenAI is great about. Go for simplicity, right? So thank you so much for sticking to the end of this one. There are more options, and if you go to the agent builders here, and agent builder has for example, if I take this agent now and I go ahead and I delete this agent, then I will have more like data enrichment, planning helper, structured data Q&A, internal knowledge assistant, or document comparison. There's multiple agents like that. So definitely go out and explore or create your own workflow. But please help and support my channel. And the subscription button should be somewhere right below. And please follow my website as well, therhub.com, and like and subscribe this video, please. Looking forward to connect with you all in the next video. Until then, bye bye, sayonara.